You'll never get great if you don't get good. But you'll never get good if you only focus on perfect. That's the connection a lot of people make, right? Nice car, then I'm probably happy. And most realize that that's not the case.
Today's guest is Tristan Gregoire, a coach, mentor, and a founder of a Best Self Protocol program that helps people to break free from the noise and reconnect with what truly matters to them.
You cannot figure out who you want to be if you don't know what made you who you are now. If you don't know where you are on the map, that map you get is just a maze.
Be ready, because this conversation might challenge some of the beliefs you've been holding on to. We will dive into why so many of us get stuck in procrastination loops, the hidden patterns holding us back, and how to finally change your life and start moving forward. Welcome to Her Way Podcast. Okay, I will start with the basic one. Can you introduce yourself, please, and tell people a little bit more about what you're doing and why you started in the first place?
Oh, that's a good question, the last one. So my name is Tristan Gregoire. I have a community. I make content. I have a personal development program. I mentor. I'm a coach. I am a seeker as well, still learning. Still figuring out what this thing is about we call life. And why I started, I think I've always been curious of life. I've always kind of thought that there was more to life than what the eye meets, than what we're told. And that there is more out there that had to be discovered, and that there is more potential out there that you could realize and fulfill. So that's really what started my initial journey of pursuing myself, I guess.
Wow, I love it. Actually, following question that I would ask after this is, so you said like you always felt that there's something deeper under like the whole surface of, oh, just get a job, oh, just do that, just like the basic things that society is telling us. So why did you decide to become a coach or go in public and just preach about it and speak about it and open not only your eyes, but the eyes of people? Because there's so many people who might listen to this right now and they are in this searching stage where they're like, oh, I'm waking up, I understand what's happening, but they don't have enough courage to go and talk about it and spread the message. But what encouraged you to go and make it your path, your career, and your calling?
Well, it definitely is. Definitely is my mission, my purpose as well. I think the moment that I realized I had to do it was when I realized that it was my purpose. It was my mission. It was why I was here. A lot of work went into it before that. There was a lot of realizations. There were a lot of exploration in other areas of life before that. But I always knew that I wanted to get more out of life personally, like not follow the traditional road, because I didn't believe that was the best road. I think everyone should pave their own road, right? Their own path. So I did that for a while and kind of explored a bunch of different things. But it wasn't until I really realized that, all these things I've learned throughout the years of, mindset, psychology, and, purpose, happiness, meaning, all these topics, they changed so much for me in my life. And I wanted to spread that to other people as well. So I kind of realized that, if this is my passion, if this is what burns inside of me, and I'm so curious about it, and I for some reason know a lot about it because I've explored a lot of it, why not share it with other people? So it started just as content and sharing ideas and sharing the ideas that has helped me tremendously. And then at some point, people came to me and started, asking how they could work with me and what if I could help them out. And so it kind of like naturally transitioned into me helping other people. And then off the back of that, creating a program from it, and then realizing we needed more community around it. So creating a community off the back of that. And, I love conversation, so at some point it became like videos and podcasts and stuff. So it just like naturally kind of evolved from that curiosity and that intention to help others the same way that I had my life changed, really.
That's actually so beautiful because I just know from a personal experience that when you have something that you're so passionate about and you've learned something that you feel like a secret that no one is talking about, you're like, okay, I want to go outside and literally tell everyone that you can actually change your life. You can actually do the things in a different way. And you can, as you mentioned, create your own way. Not following the path that someone told you about. Even like in self-development space that we're in, both of us, in the sense of like content and the niche, even in that space, there are so many people who are like, quit 9 to 5, just do that thing, go into business. But it's also not really wise to think about it from that perspective, because there are some people who are not meant for entrepreneurship or not meant for coaching or specific paths. So I just really love how you mentioned that you're basically helping other people to experience the same thing as you did, which is like paving your own path and having the same type of realizations as you, but just making the path shorter. Based on that, I would really like to know, what is number one question that you feel like people are coming to you as a coach most of the time? Is it like the problem of finding your passion, or is it more like, why am I getting stuck in the procrastination cycle, or what is it?
Both very, very good, or good suggestions. You could say both coming a lot. I would say it's either, finding your purpose, your meaning in life. What are you meant to pursue? What's your, pocket in life? Where do you fit in? What's the life that you want to live, right? A lot of people have a great idea of what they kind of want and what they don't want, but like that clarity of this is what I want is often hard for people, and it's finding that path towards it that's difficult for a lot. So I would say that's one of them. And then, staying stuck, procrastination, yes, but I would also say a lot about like discipline, and showing up for yourself, showing up for this life that it is you want to create, is a big one as well that I see a lot. So a lot of like confusion about where do I want to go, like uncertainty, lack of clarity. Where do I want to go? What's my purpose? What's my meaning in life? Like, I have a good life, but it's not necessarily the most fulfilling or the happiest life I want to live. And then how do I actually take the steps, right? Like, how do I show up? How do I become that version of myself? That's probably the two biggest, yeah.
That's so interesting. And why do you think people have such a big struggle with identifying what they actually want and what is their purpose? Because I would just, like, from my perspective, suggest that it is lack of spirituality in society and just lack of any type of awareness that is deeper than just, oh, I want to buy a house, well, I want to make money. Because we all know, like, that, okay, I need a good house, let's say, I need a car, I need all these materialistic things, but not many people just go and ask, okay, but what am I beyond those expectations, beyond my career? But what do you think, based on your experience and the work with clients, what is the reason, what is the root of this lack of clarity and this purpose crisis in some type of way?
No, I definitely think we are in a purpose crisis or meaning crisis. And if you, just to take it on a complete tangent, if you look at the way society is moving now, it's been like this for a while, and it's why we're seeing so many people being unhappy in their jobs, but all the way to raising suicide rates and all this, right? It's a crisis, but is only getting worse with the rise of AI, with loss of human connection, right? It's only getting worse. So I think it's a big problem that we need to figure out how to tackle, which is also, a layer of why I'm doing this, because it is such a problem for so many people, right? I think a lot of it has to do with this modern society that we've created of so much information, so many paths. I think for many in the Western world countries, it's like a luxury problem, or a first world problem, as many would say. Like, which path should I take? Because there are so many. You could pretty much do anything you want, right? It's just about how to choose it and how to do it. So that's like a pretty first world problem to have. But I think in general, we are very focused on what we see with our eye, right? We focus on materialistic success. We focus on the people we look up to, our idols. And for a long time, that's been the people in TV, or the football players or the actors, right? And they have the material success, not because they pursued that, but as a byproduct. So that's the connection a lot of people make, right? Nice car, then I'm probably happy, and most realize that that's not the case. So I think that's the root, but how it shows up is exactly what you said. I agree a lot. It's this lack of depth to sitting with yourself and figuring out who you are, and just taking on what the world tells you need to be, really.
Yeah. How do you help your clients to overcome it? And if someone is listening right now and they are overwhelmed with an advice, they hear so many different theories, ideas, what would you advise them to do? I can guess that the answer is going to be pretty much the same. Maybe it's depending on a personal level, right? Like because you work with different clients and they have different contexts. But if there's like universal thing, that one advice that you would actually give and you would be like, that's what will work. That is the exact thing you need to do outside of the noise and everything else that would help you to get through this kind of like the feeling of being stuck, I would say, because it's just a lot of mess in your head that is like stopping you from having clarity.
Yeah, yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail just in the question, saying avoiding the noise, right? There's this concept of signal versus noise. And I think that is what lack of clarity is. It's too much noise. There's too much going on. And I think we live in a world where it's been normalized to avoid the noise in escapism or in distractions, right? We don't seek inwards to find clarity or to find stillness. We seek outwards. We do something. We go somewhere. We, figure something out, right? It's never about listening and leaning into the noise and then deciphering what is noise and what is actually clarity and what is signal, right? It's a very good question. I would say, like, I work with a pretty straightforward, like, step-by-step framework thing that I think works for anyone because it's universal, right? And the first step is clarity. It is figuring out what is that for you. And I think like I always say, the root of becoming your best self. So for anyone wondering, my brand is called Best Self. I think the root of your best self is who you are now. You need to understand who you are now. You cannot figure out who you want to be if you don't know what made you who you are now. If you don't know where you are on the map, that map you get is just a maze, right? You don't know what your starting point is. So I think if anyone is stuck out there and want to do better, yes, figure out where you want to go in life. Sure, figure out what you want and what you don't want and what success looks like and what the perfect day looks like. That's all important, but it's not the first step. The first step is figuring out where you are and just taking some small steps. Because as you start to take those small steps, as you start to just move in the right direction, there will be more clarity. Movement doesn't, or action doesn't come from clarity. Sure, when you have clarity, you can act more. But often it's the case that it's the other way around, that clarity comes from action, that you take steps forward and then you see life from a new perspective. So to end a very long answer, to make it very short, I would say start moving, start doing something. Overcome that feeling of having to do the right thing or the perfect thing and just start doing something. Start trying something. Then you'll realize something along the way.
That's beautiful. And having the long answers, that's the most valuable thing, honestly. That's why we're diving deeper into all of it. But you've gone through a lot of self-development content and you read so many books, watched so many creators, consumed a lot of content. And I'm pretty curious, what is the piece of advice or a belief that you heard so many times on the internet that you used to believe like so strongly, but now after all of your experience, you realized that it's actually not really true. Or it is something that a lot of people spread, but it's just not something that will actually benefit people.
That's a really good question. It also depends what you label self-improvement or personal development, right? If you see the normal success mindset topic as part of that, I would say is this idea of, becoming successful, getting all the things you want. And of course, there's something to that, achieving the goals you have, but it's the idea that that will make you happier or that is what you're lacking. Right? That's just from a state of lack. So it's not about the outcome of you will get this or that. It's about I love this idea that desire is the contract. I think Naval said this. The desire is the contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want to get, right? And I think it's not an agenda being pushed like you need to be successful to be happy. It's more like you look at Instagram and you see all the 20-year-olds in the Lamborghinis in Miami that's all rented and paid for, and they split it just to get it for a day, right? It's a fake image. Well, that's a tangent. I think you see that and you connect it with success and with happiness. And you think to yourself, that's what I need, right? So I wouldn't say it's an advice. that people get. It's just what we see. The advice that some people then get is that you need to get a lot of money in order to be happy, right? You need to have freedom. You need to all that. And I did believe that for a while. It's an important part of life, no doubt about it. You need to get your finances right and, your structure about your life and not just whatever, right? But it's definitely not the key. And I think a lot of people make it the key. I'm not sure it's about self-development or it's an advice of self-development, but it's definitely something I see a lot online that I think a lot of people nowadays are falling for, unfortunately.
Wow, that's actually so true. And I feel like, again, going back to what we discussed earlier, it is this obsession, especially in the Western world, with materialistic stuff, with, oh, I have to have this career and I have to have the money and the house. And it's like this perfect picture that we're being sold through movies, through, I don't know, content. And it's just not true, as you said, that it will make you happy. There's so many people that can get to this point and be like, you know what, I actually prefer living in a small house somewhere in cool village with the lake and just like my husband and my kids. And it's, it's like there's no universal formula for everybody, but especially the West. I think it's, as I mentioned before, even though I'm repeating myself, is because of the lack of focus on like spiritual things, on the spiritual side of life. Because even if we will take a look at the society that we had 100 years ago, it was mostly built on God or on some type of spirituality. So even though people were not as rich maybe or as like educated as we are now, thanks to AI, internet resources, a lot of people were more satisfied with their lives because they had this time to sit with themselves. They did have this time to appreciate small things, and they did have a good relationship with God, which was the foundation of everything else. So even if you would get more successful, you would appreciate it and you would sit with it and you would be like, wow, that's amazing. I can keep going. But it was from a place of gratitude and from the place of I already have everything I need. So anything extra is a blessing. And the more you feel grateful, the more you get. Now, as you mentioned so beautifully, we are acting from a place of luck. Oh, I am lucking because this guy has a Lamborghini, but I don't have. It's like, or this girl made $50,000 in like a couple of days, but I didn't, so I'm lucking. And it's like just a constant game of comparison, especially in materialistic things. I barely hear anybody online talking about, oh, she is like more fulfilled than me. She's praying more than me. It's like no one really compares that, but people compare like, oh, she has more money. He has a better girlfriend. He la 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 la. And it's like the focus is not on the correct thing. Because once you fix your focus on spiritual side of things, everything else naturally will come to you as the result. But it's just so interesting to hear from you, and I totally agree with everything you said. So do you think that this obsession with becoming the best version of yourself, being so successful, is in some way actively keeping people disconnected from themselves even more and actively keeping them even more stuck in the position where we are, instead of them learning more about themselves, as you mentioned before, clarifying where we are right now, and learning to seek the right things, not the successful image that they just created in their head, or they were sold to even, I would say.
I think it can be. I definitely think it can be. I think it can, like with anything, moderation is key. And it can become very obsessive, and it can become another pursuit of another contract you made with yourself, that until I'm this perfect version of myself, I won't be happy. Until I can do 100 pull-ups, if I only do 98, then it's not good enough. I need to be better, right? So you can, like with anything, it's a mindset. I think that that contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you can reach your goal. However, I think that draws a lot into the misconception, so to say, of self-improvement. I mean, I meet so many people that are like on this self-development or healing journey, and it's always with that intention of getting somewhere. It's always with that intention of, oh, I need to, become this best version of myself and all that. But I think really self-development is it's improving yourself continuously, right? It's like with money or with the big house. There will always be milestones along the way, but there will never be a finish line. And I think it's the same for, developing yourself, improving yourself. I think the goal for many people is getting to that point of like, oh, I'm so good. I'm exactly where I want to be. And sure, you need to be happy along the way, right? And get to a point where you want to be. That's the motivation. But I think for many people, it becomes that contract again, and it leads to obsessiveness for some people. Instead of being the focus on how can I make my present day, my this moment, this day today, the most alike the life I actually want to live, right? And as you so beautifully mentioned, that we create from a place of abundance, of gratitude, right? Of blessings. And just to touch on that point, because I thought it was so interesting, it's a bit of if I may, it's a bit outside the question, but I love how you said that. I think, or I love that you said that you think that this lack of purpose is a lack of spirituality, right? I think it's so interesting, that point, because I wouldn't say, and I'm not sure I would label myself as, religious, but I think for a while religion has been what filled the spiritual realm for a lot of people. And that's kind of gone, that's gone a bit lost over the last 150, 20 years. We're more individualized now and all that, right? But I think it is an answer. I think religion definitely is an answer to the connection of something bigger than ourselves, right? The spiritual realm. But I think there are many other answers as well, right? The thing is just that nowadays people have none of it. People are disconnected from all of the things that are bigger than themselves, and they really only focus on what is themselves and their individual lives. And I think that's what a lot of people lack, as you said as well, that connection to something that's bigger than yourself.
It kind of made me think while you were talking. We live in the era of individualism, as I call it.
Yeah.
And in some way, I understand the benefit of putting yourself first, right? And like focusing on building your life, yourself, and bettering yourself before you go and help others. But I also notice that from a fulfillment perspective, being an individualist, where you put yourself above everything and everyone, is actually going to lead you to even more depression, even more confusion, and it will lead you to even more questioning your purpose. And we can see that from a social perspective, because we can see that suicidal rates, depression rates are just skyrocketing. It's like all-time high. And I truly believe that individualism is partly the reason why, because even when I ask you, what is your purpose in the beginning and why did you start it? You said, because I wanted to help other people to experience the same thing that I had. And it is something outside of you. Yeah. It is not just, I wanted to become rich, I wanted to become successful, I wanted to figure it all out, and that's pretty much it. Now, like, as humans, we have a desire to help others, to do something for others. What I noticed from my experience is that when you start to put something higher, maybe God, maybe spiritual part of like things, maybe universe, because everyone who's listening believes in a different thing. But once you start putting God, in my perspective, and other people, and your purpose above yourself sometimes and your desires, that's when you actually start to seek more fulfillment. But that's such an unpopular opinion, and I'm curious to learn your perspective on it. How do you feel like we should balance between, I want to build myself, take care of myself, and do things for myself, but I also don't want to forget about making an impact, helping other people? And do you think one thing is more important than the other, or there should be a balance? And how to go even like about the guilt maybe that some people have on the both sides of a spectrum?
Yeah, great question. I first want to start off with, I don't think there's one size or one answer fits all, right? I think that's the importance of finding that clarity and finding what matters to you and figuring out what you want to do. Next up, I'll preface my answer by saying that fulfillment is not the same as enjoyment or happiness, right? Fulfillment is bigger. It's more about meaning, and often it can be very unhappy to be fulfilled. It's very counterintuitive, but a lot of people think that enjoyment and happiness and fulfillment and meaning is kind of all the same, but it's really not when you look at the mental states and the brain states and how you feel about it and the emotional state, right? So fulfillment, I've heard this recipe for fulfillment so many times, and I love it. And it is that you need to do something that you thoroughly enjoy, something that you're passionate about, something that you're curious about, but also serves the greater good of others. So it needs to be productive for other people as well. That's sort of like the recipe for fulfillment, doing something that's meaningful to others as well. And I think that's what a lot of people lack in this individualistic society nowadays. And we've been taught that you need to go your own ways. And I think you do need to pave your own way, right? But I think we've been taught too much that you can do everything on your own. Like I struggle to believe that you can actually, I always think that someone who's less skilled in something, but is paired with someone else will always be better than someone who's really, really good doing it themselves, right? And we've kind of had it to be like a burden to be with other people, like, oh, they're slow, or they're not thinking the same way, or, and sure, we're connected with 7 billion people now. There will probably be some that we don't get along with, right? But I think it's about finding your people and finding people that are like-minded, but also being open to other perspectives as well from people that are not like-minded, perhaps, to better get a gauge of your perspective of everything. But yeah, to get back to the original question, which I kind of forgot at this point, I do believe it's definitely, that individualism of I can do everything myself. And I think it's in large portions being stowed upon us by the society, and that we can do everything ourselves, and it's career, and we do this and we do that. But I think, to answer your question of, is one better than the other? I think that's very, again, individual. What do you want to pursue in life? But I think it's a human need. I think it's a basic human, a foundation of humanity, that we were raised to be in tribes. We were raised to be social. We are social animals, right? We are moral animals. We have morality for a reason. That's not to just live our own world, right? We're living in the world with other people and with other species as well, in the universe with other energies as well. So I think you'll definitely find more fulfillment and happiness by inviting some of that burden in. I think so, because that's the human nature. I don't think it's right for anyone and for everyone, but I think you have to experiment it yourself, for yourself, and figure out what's right for you, really.
I just asked this because I feel like, in my experience, when I talk to people, especially who are ambitious and who want to be the best version of themselves and who are into constant education, making yourself better, they sometimes struggle with social part of things where they just isolate themselves so much. And there's some kind of trend that would even say, like, isolate yourself, grind. And it's like, once you isolate yourself, yes, you will maybe grow a little bit faster because all of your focus is just purely on bettering yourself. But at the same time, we are, as you said, social creatures, and we need other people. And at the end of the day, even if you look at anything that was built that is massive, maybe a company, maybe like the governments, kingdoms, anything throughout the history, it was never built by one person. Even the company that we're using our phones, right, like Apple, it was not built by one person. It was a team of people that built it. This app that we're using right now to record the podcast, it was built by a team of people. So nothing great comes out of just you. And it's, I think, the problem of ego sometimes in the cases where it's like, oh, it's just about me. It's me alone. I don't need anyone. But at the same time, I would love to dive into the topic of friendships, relationships, and the importance of it in our life, because even in self-development type of glamorous niche of internet where everyone is like, yeah, I'm 20, I have a Lamborghini, I have this business, screw love, screw all of that. It's like so easy to get lost in the constant pursuit of things, but lose the sight of humanity where you're just like, yeah, but I still need a connection with other people. I still, for fulfillment and healthy life, I need the relationships, I need the people to share it with, and I need to learn how to communicate with others too. And I feel like even in this generation, because we have so much technology, it's also getting like harder and harder. But what I'm trying to get to is how you think important the relationships that we have with other people are in our life for our fulfillment or even success, and how can we learn to build those relationships better and in more quality way.
It's a great question. I think it's the most important thing in fulfillment. The longest running study on happiness ever concluded that happiness is the quality and depth of your close connections. Right? That is what it is. And when you speak about fulfillment and meaning in life, it's often, the recipe I spoke about before. It's the people that not only do something they enjoy, but they do it for other people as well. They don't show up to work just because they want to have fun. They show up because it has meaning to them, that it's bigger than them, right? So I think it is the key, our relationship with people, but people close to us, but also people further away from us, right? Speaking of relationships and friendships, the people that are closest to us, that is what makes happiness. Again, happiness and fulfillment is not always the same, but that's what makes happiness. And I think that goes back to the human nature, right? And it's what we need. We need that social connection. We need human connection. And we've been raised in a world and told in a world that we can do everything ourselves and just focus on ourselves and everything. In terms of relationships, I don't think you go away to the mountains and you become the best friend ever. I think you become the best friend ever by being a friend and figuring out what it means to be a friend, right? Through trial and error and through failing miserably and picking yourself up again and trying again and doing again, right? If you have the right intention, you can get through it. But I think it stems from this underlying problem in modern society that we've been raised with, that everything should just be easy, that life is about happiness and life is about having fun, and that's what we're being fed, right? By all around us. And even the most successful people in the world, right? Sure, it's also about success. There's something beautiful about setting a goal and achieving that and making something of your life. That's beautiful. But it's not, it's not the only thing. It's the only thing we see on, for example, social media, but you don't know if their relationships are in shambles. You don't know if they're going to bed every single night high or drunk because they cannot stand their reality, right? You don't know that. And that's the problem we see in this world. And with social media showing that comparison, but also just the mechanics of how they work for our brain, right? This instant gratification. We've become so used to not working for anything in life and thinking that life should not be this hard. And it goes both for success and, mindset and becoming that best version of yourself, going to the gym, whatever it might be. That's hard. But it also comes to relationships, right? And that's why it's become so popular, I think, to I go ghost, I go monk mode, I'm working on myself. Yeah, sure. Like, work on yourself. That's amazing. I love that. It's a great priority, right? And there is definitely a lot of value to be found in working yourself. When you level up, you become a better person to other people, right? But I think that exclusivity, that's a big fallacy. You don't need to go to the mountains to work on yourself to become a better friend. And I think doing it alongside others, when you co-create, when you synergize, when you do things together with other people and learn with other people, I think you learn even more. And I think you enjoy the process a lot more in doing the process, really.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like beautifully put together. The answer is just amazing. And you said that we're striving for comfort a lot, and we're striving for constant happiness a lot. I think that's one of the reasons why we struggle with discipline nowadays.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about discipline, about the perception that we have of discipline and what is discipline. So I have a question for you. How do you define discipline, and how can we develop the skill of being disciplined? Because I don't think it's like a magical thing that just someone has and someone doesn't.
No. Yeah, sure. It's a great question. I think it's very hard to define actually. And I think it is a skill that you develop. It's not like an off and on and off switch. I would say more than a skill, it's probably a muscle. Like you train it over time, so you get stronger, and sometimes it weakens. Sometimes you get injuries, right? But it's like a muscle that you train over time, and it's still difficult, right? Anyone that goes to the gym knows that, like lifting a 20-pound bar is still heavy, right? It's like if you go to the 10-pound bar, it will be easier, but you still have to lift it. So you just get stronger, but you lift more. That's kind of the same with discipline, that it never gets easier. You just get better at handling it. But what is discipline? I think discipline is not far from what normal self-development tells you it is. It's just the intention behind that's completely wrong, and the outcome, the focus behind. I think self-development is pretty right in saying that discipline is the ability to show up for yourself. It's the ability to do what you want to do. So you go to the gym, that's discipline. It's showing up when it gets hard, right? A lot of self-development or productivity gurus or success preach this idea that, discipline is doing whatever it takes in spite of your emotional, situation, or your emotions, your feelings, whatever, right? And I don't disagree with that, but I disagree with always leaning on discipline and always just plowing through your thoughts and emotions, right? If you really, really, really don't want to go to the gym every single day, it's probably not a matter of discipline. It's probably because of something else, right? There's probably some other resistance behind. There's probably some, I don't know, trauma that's unresolved behind that. If you fix that instead, you wouldn't have to force yourself through everything. So I agree. The action of discipline is showing up and doing what needs to be done. I think that's discipline. It's living, and I love to say this instead, it's living in alignment. It's having integrity. It's matching your actions with your values, right? If you want to be healthy, then you don't eat that cookie, right? Because you want to be healthy. So discipline is hard. Even though you want the cookie, you'll not do it. That's discipline, right? But I disagree on discipline being force, being willpower, being, show up no matter if it's, rain, thunder, whatever it might be. Discipline is showing up, but it's much more intricate than a lot of people make it, I think.
I love it. And how do you feel like people can develop the muscle of being disciplined? Where should they start? Because you mentioned that it's a lot of times unresolved trauma, or sometimes it is a deeper reason why you don't want to do something. And I would even say a lot of people believe they're lazy or they procrastinate because something is wrong with them. But in reality, they might be working on the wrong thing. And that's the only reason why they don't want to do it. Because if you will think about it, if you take a child and you will put them in a room with the thing that they love the most, maybe it's like drawing, maybe it's like piano or something, they can sit there for hours and hours, not eat, not sleep, and just do the thing, and they will have a lot of focus and dedication. But if you put them in the same room, but you will give them, let's say, math assignments or something, and maybe they hate it, it doesn't matter how much you will push them, probably they're not gonna do it. So I feel like it's the same in adulthood. Many times we're just like, I want to build this business, I want to be dedicated to this, but in reality, maybe you don't even want to build a business. You want the result and the lifestyle, or the emotion that building a business, or saying even that you're building a business would give you. But in reality, you want something else. And because you're on the wrong path that is not aligned, I love the fact that you use the word alignment. Because they're not aligned, they're like, oh, it's me problem. it's I am like lazy. I am this and that. It's like something is wrong with me, but in reality, nothing is wrong with you. You're just working on the thing that is not in alignment, not what you actually want, and that's why there might be a problem with discipline. But could you like go deeper into it? Because I
Yeah,
loved how you
sure.
said about the trauma or the deeper reason, and I would love to hear your thoughts because you work with people a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. I think you're very right. It's definitely a lot. Like that's the pill we've been taught to swallow, right? That you need to set yourself a goal and then work towards it, right? That's discipline. That's willpower, and you don't stop before you're there, right? Like that's why we see there's so many people like pursuing something and not being happy about it, right? I do think that discipline is that. It is showing up. But if you are, you know, if you are aligned, it's a lot easier to show up for yourself. It's a lot easier to be disciplined. However, there will still be times where things suck, where things are not going your way, and where you still have to show up, right? So I think that's also a fallacy for some people that you need to find your thing in life, and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't really buy that in the modern society. I think if you really want to be successful and also materially successful in the pursuit you're doing, if that's a business, entrepreneurship, whatever it might be, your job, whatever it might be, if you don't want to just sit around, well, no, even that, like if you want to be an artist and you want to sit around and paint every single day, which I think is beautiful, there will be days where you don't want to paint. Like there will, right? And I think discipline is the idea of showing up no matter how you feel on those things that you love. That said, it's a lot easier when you do something you love and something you're passionate about, something that's meaningful to you when you are aligned. And I love that you said that it's not a problem for a lot of, or it's not a me problem for a lot of people nowadays. It is in the way that there's nothing wrong with them, but there's something wrong with their approach, right? The approach is, I'm following this, I'm doing that, I'm doing all this I'm being told to do. But that's the wrong approach. You have to find what's your thing, right? And then it's still about exercising discipline, but it becomes a lot easier. And to get to the first part of the question about how do you then develop discipline, right? Where do you start? I think it is about starting very, very small. You could say discipline is, if that's the idea of showing up no matter how you feel and it's keeping promises to yourself, it starts with making promises and keeping promises, right? Like there's this super uber viral clip with Chris Williamson where he talks about like, stop breaking promises to yourself, right? And he says, if you set the alarm at 7 a.m., wake up at 7 a.m., right? And it is really that simple, right? It's not easy. I know that. I've gone through it for 10 years. It's not easy, but it's simple. It is very simple. So a way you can do that is, of course, you have goals you want to work towards. Well, start working towards them and taking action towards them. But that's still hard. So instead, trick your brain. You could trick your brain a lot of ways. It's something I do with a lot of the people I work with. That you can be very, very tricky. You can set things up like, oh, after I do this, I'll do that, right? So you trick your brain, you do that thing, then you do that. Well, that's a massive win for your brain. You teach your brain what it feels like to do the thing you said you would do, right? So you can do that both with nice things, you can also do that with good things, right? You spoke earlier about guilt, and I think guilt is the feeling of not doing what you know you should do. It's being misaligned, essentially. It's, I am doing this thing, but I should actually be doing this thing, or I wanted to do this thing, right? So discipline is the opposite of that. It's doing what you know you should do. And that starts very small. So I would say look at your life and see what are some areas that you really want to improve. And I'm talking like 1, maybe 2, not 10, not 15. And just start making some active action points in that, and keeping your promises to yourself, showing up for yourself, and set the bar really, really low. For anyone listening right now, if you're really, really stuck and you want to get to the gym, like you always see in January, the gyms are just filled, and by February they're completely empty again, right? It's the same every year, really. Make a habit of getting to the gym, not like getting the perfect workout. Like, I love this idea of showing up. It's something that's deeply ingrained in my philosophy to life. Showing up. It means that you show up no matter what it feels like. Because so many people are stuck in this, either I do or I don't. Like 100% or no percent. Like, either I go to the gym and get the best workout, or I stay at home because I'm tired. No, show up. Go to the gym and do 20 minutes on a bike if you cannot do a full hour, right? It's like exercise the muscle of showing up. That will make you disciplined in anything. And at some point, like, of course, there's a point where you become a robot and you can just do anything and you have no emotions. So that's where you want to go to, right? And that's why I say discipline is not just full willpower, but that's the muscle of discipline. It's setting yourself a goal and doing that.
Wow, that's actually so good. And I do feel like that's a problem of perfectionism. A lot of times. It's like either I do all of it perfectly or I don't show up at all.
Yeah.
So I struggled with perfectionism myself so many times. Even recording this episode is just like in my head, oh, it should be perfect. I have to do this way. But in reality, you will never get perfect and you will never get to even a good level of skill, of muscle, of discipline or mindset or anything or career achievements if you don't start by failing, learning, being uncomfortable, feeling bad about the results, or like just going through the phase of being the beginner. And a lot of us are so afraid to be the beginner or be someone who is embarrassed because you tried something and it didn't work. So how do you overcome the fear of getting started? How do you overcome perfectionism and this idea that I have to be perfect, go all in, or it doesn't matter?
Well, so I think there are many ways to go about that. I think perfectionism is most of all a mindset. It's most of all a frame of reference that perfect exists, right? So you can start by just completely shattering that idea that perfect never exists. Perfect doesn't exist anywhere. If you look at, like, I love this, and you can find this in so many religions, but also just in philosophies, right? The most perfect thing we probably have in nature or in the universe is nature, right? If you look around it, it's so imperfect that it's perfect. It's chaotic, but it's also in order, right? It's yin and yang. You cannot have order without chaos, and you cannot have chaos without order, right? There's always a bit of both in each. And I think that's the right definition of perfect. So for so many people, perfect means doing something to the best, to 100% again. Right? But I think perfectionism is really a byproduct of scoring yourself on the outcome instead of your effort or your input. And I think that's a mindset shift that helped me a lot in my life, and something I see very valuable for a lot of people is if you start, instead of focusing on, I'll get the perfect outcome, you instead focus on, I'll do the best I can, then you'll always do your best you can. And if you really did the best you can, there'll never be a time where you look in the mirror and said, oh, this is not good enough. Well, maybe it's not good enough, but if you did your best, you couldn't have done it better. Like, there is no reason to think about doing it better because you couldn't have done it better. If it's still not good enough, well, try again, learn, become better. But the only way you become better is by being a beginner and by trying. And I loved how you said that. And I think that's the other kind of mindset shift to make, is that no one started good at anything, right? Sure, we can have talent, or we can have like a disposition for something that we are better at than others. And I think we should lean into that. But like a lot of things in life, a lot of success in life is skilled, right? It's skills that we develop over time. And everyone you look up to, I promise, everyone who's looking, watching this right now, listening, where you are consuming, the people you're looking up to, they started as a beginner as well. And I think that's so inspiring, right? And that's where comparison, for example, can become a great tool. When you look at the people you look up to, go back, like go to that Wikipedia and see how they started. Go back and figure out how they were the biggest loser in high school. Like, they had no friends. They were miserable. They were just practicing every single day, doing nothing but practicing. And now you cherish them. You worship them, right? So I think people forget the arc to life. People often just see the instant picture and say, oh, wow, I want to be there. You can be there. You can get there, but it's going to require a lot. And everyone started, with less than they have. And everyone came into this world with nothing, essentially, when you think about it. It's not like, the biggest actors or the biggest football players, they were just born and they were this talent, right? They worked for it. They figured it out. They disciplined themselves to go through it, and they kept on going. They didn't quit, right? There's so many moments along the way that made them. And I think that's the fallacy that a lot of people have with perfectionism, is that perfect exists and you can just be perfect. Last thing I'll say on this is, I don't have a great, practice, like, for example, with discipline of this is a cheat you can make or a brain hack, right? I don't have that with perfectionism. I think really it is a mindset that you need to realize. One thing I love to tell myself, whenever I find myself, this is not good enough, I always remind myself that I would much rather make progress than I would, stay stuck and aim for perfectionism, right? Progress over perfectionism, always. And there's also this great idea, I think it's even a Stoic idea. So you could tell yourself, right, it's 2,000 years old. It's something people have always struggled with. And that's, perfect is the enemy of good, or great is the enemy, or it's the other, there's actually two, right? So good is the enemy of great, but perfect is the enemy of good. And you'll never get great if you don't get good, but you'll never get good if you only focus on perfect. And you need to fail. You need to try. You need to reiterate. You need to learn. That's the only way you get better. And it's probably going to take some time. But I think you need to accept that.
Wow, I really feel like it's so powerful what you just said, especially the last thing. But I also think something that you mentioned about comparison. I feel like perfectionism is rooted in comparison. It's like you have this idea of someone else doing something perfectly in your eyes, and you're like, I have to set the same level of standard for myself. But what a lot of us don't understand is that, especially with social media, it is so easy to compare your chapter 1 with someone's chapter 20. And it's like you compare someone who've been, let's say if it's a football player, you compare someone who was playing for 20 years with yourself who were, I don't know, you were playing, let's say, for a year. It's like, of course he's gonna be better than you, but like give yourself 20 years and you will also get there. So comparison, it is something that is messy, something that is a lot of people struggle with. But I do feel like in your example, as you said, comparison can be also very, very useful. So what is your take on comparison, and have you ever struggled with comparison? Because I do feel like everything has a good and a bad side, but it's just the perspective that you have on it. Some people compare themselves and think, oh my God, I can also do that. Someone achieved something and you're like, wow, it's a motivation. And some people look at this and envy and go, wow, I will never be able to do that. Or they feel like that's the problem that I saw so many times. It's like if someone else succeeded, it's taken away something from you or your opportunity or wealth or your potential like idea, which is not true. So how do you go about it? And what would you say to people who are stuck in this comparison cycle where they just can't get out of it and it's like negative?
I think you have to figure out why you're comparing yourself and what you're comparing yourself on. And perhaps asking yourself, because I won't give you the answer, but ask yourself, what do you get out of this comparison? What's the goal? What are you seeking out of this comparison? And perhaps just sit with that for a moment. And then people will probably get to some realizations of that. I love what you said about it's the envy in comparison. That's the issue, right? Like with anything, there's a good and a bad side to it. I think comparison is actually a beautiful tool. I think it's a gift and a curse, sure. The curse is when we are envy and when we are envious of someone, and it's the curse when we look at Instagram and we see one facet, right? We see one perspective. The issue is we see someone traveling all their 20s. We see someone who's built a multi-million-dollar empire. We see the early teen mom who's living on a farm and just loves life. We see the perfect athlete. We see all of it. But the reality is that if you take one of those people, they're only successful in that one avenue. Maybe a couple, right? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But no one is doing all of that, right? But that's the perfect ideal that we have in our mind. The issue with comparison is that because of modern society, it's very unrealistic. It doesn't make sense. And I love this idea that you can compare yourself with people. I actually think it's beautiful to compare yourself with people, but you have to compare with the entire person. You cannot just pick and choose. And that's kind of what we've been used to doing, right? We want to be famous. We want to make a lot of money, but we also want to be, private and just not work that much and also like be very happy. But that doesn't, it maybe exists for some people, right? I think you can have it all in life. I think that's one of the areas where I'm still, figuring everything out. I think you can have everything in life, but I don't think you can have everything at once, right? That's a distinction. And you need to compare yourself with people that you look up to, and you need to look at the entire person. Sure, pick and choose of the different people that you look up to and create like a full picture of it. But don't just compare to one thing, like, oh, that car, right? Create a full person and say, oh, that car, that house, that career, perfect. But what do they lack? What does that person lack? What does that person not excel in? I think then you can use comparison as a very valid tool. And I think, the saying comparison is the thief of joy, I think has a lot of merit. You can also be a source of joy, of inspiration, as you said, right? The perspective that you said of some people look at that and say, oh, I want to do that. Like, I can do that. And that's very true. You can. Like, that's possible. And I think that's why comparison shines and is beautiful. But comparison is a thief of joy is in itself the idea that it takes us out of the present, right? It puts us into the state of expectation, puts us into the state of lack again. It takes us out of this creator mode that we can create things, that we have things, that everything is already within. Instead, we outsource things and say, oh, I want to do that. And, they have that and I want to do that. And that's great. That's for motivation. That's inspiration. But it's still taking you out of what do you have now? And that's where happiness is found, right? So it's different from saying that comparison is good or bad, but it's definitely the thief of happiness. I agree with that. But it can be a source of inspiration, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also feel like in so many ways, when we compare, as you said, we don't see the full picture. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, the thing that a lot of people don't realize that those successful people that in so many ways we look up to, they had to sacrifice so many things in order to get there. Yeah. Because you always need to remember that in order to gain something, you have to sacrifice something. You have to give up something. Yeah. And nothing comes without a price. So when you think, oh, I want to be successful, you need to realize that, yeah, you might be like, let's say I want to be famous, okay? If you want to be famous, you need to realize that you might have to sacrifice your privacy, sometimes your safety in many ways, and there's always something that you will have to give up. Yeah. And when you start to look at comparison from that perspective, you start to realize, oh, you know what? The price tag on this thing that they have, I'm not willing to pay. I'm not ready to pay. And it kind of like gives you a full picture. There's so many people who look at some billionaire, let's say, and yes, they have a company, they have billions of dollars, they have a car, but maybe they don't have a family, let's say. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm not really ready to do that. So it's like you can just pick and choose and think like, oh, I'll just create this perfect picture for myself. No, there's always a price. And you need to learn to understand, are you ready to pay it or not? And from that, I would love to ask you a question. You are where you are right now. You are building this amazing platform for people. You're coaching people. Of course, there are so many things probably that you still want to achieve and build, but like you're at a really, really good point in your life, in your career, and in the way you help people. What were the things that you had to sacrifice and the things that you had to give up in order to get here that maybe people don't really realize, or something people don't see even when they look at you and maybe compare themselves to you?
Beautiful question, right? Let's completely delete the filter of Instagram. I love it. I think I had a lot of fun and enjoyment. Had to give a lot of, nice things up. Like, oh, let's just sleep in. Let's just, go on a hike tonight. No, I can't. I'm working, right? And it's kind of like there are many other things like friendships. Had to give up a lot of friendships, family time. But I think you touched so beautifully on it. I would love to go more deep into it. It's not like to reflect it, but I think you said it so beautiful. Sacrifice and success is being willing to pay the price. It's about figuring out what is the price tag and is it worth it. Sacrifice by definition means giving up something that matters to you, right? If you're giving something up that you don't care about, it's not a sacrifice, right? Then it's just, distractions or focus or, giving something up or saying no, right? If I don't want to go out for drinks on a bar and I say, no, I'll stay home at work, then I'm not going to go to bed and feel like, oh, I sacrificed this, right? No, it's just like I did what I wanted to do, right? But there will be a lot of times in anything, if you're building something of meaning and anything in life, really, like that's the foundation of life. You can have anything in life, but you cannot have everything. So you need to make choices. And it's the gift and the curse, because it means you cannot do everything. But it's also what gives value to what you do. If you could do everything, why would it be valuable? If you were planning a summer vacation and you were looking at going to Portugal or Spain, and you knew, oh, I can just go to both, right? Then you wouldn't enjoy it that much, right? Sure, that would be nice, but chances are you'll probably not get to see all the places you want to go in your life. And that's why it matters which you pick, because they are valuable, right? And I think that is what sacrifice is. And it comes back to for me, are you willing to pay the price? Is this thing you're trying to gain, is that worth the sacrifice? And for many people, it might be like, oh, I'm not willing to sacrifice my family time for building this thing, right? And that's why you have to look at a lot of the intricacies. And it's something I ask a lot, like myself a lot about, like, what do I actually want, and what am I willing to give up? I think in that question, there are two very important questions to ask yourself. And that is, for how long? Is it permanent? Is it temporary? And then two, is it non-reversible? Is it something you can do again? Is it something you can do, change? Then of course, is it worth it, right? And a lot of these sacrifices that we make are temporary, right? We give up something in the moment for something in the future. And I think by definition, that idea is pretty stupid, to be honest, right? That we give up something that we have for certain for something that we might have in the future. Like, it makes no sense. But nonetheless, we do it because we know that there is probably a future. And we would like to have a better future than we have a present moment, right? So it makes sense in that way. But if you look at it as we have what we have now, certainty, and in the future we don't know what we have, then it doesn't make sense. But to end it off, I think making sacrifices depends on your goal, right? And some people are willing to make sacrifices that mean less enjoyment, less family time, less happiness in the moment for something that's more meaningful in the future. Not necessarily better in the future, right? Like, I love this idea that now I mentioned Chris Williamson again, but it's definitely recency bias kicking in, because I saw like a 20 best lessons from 2024. So it's all kicking in right now. But he spoke about this idea that we trade the very thing that is supposed to get the thing that we want to get for the thing that we already have, right? It's like we trade happiness now for becoming successful so that we can become happy in the future. And it makes no sense. So I think that is what sacrifice should be. It is, am I willing to trade this thing that will get me something in the future that I don't already have, maybe? Or should I be keeping what I already have and not pay the price tag of what it is I'm trading it for? Yeah, it's a beautiful question.
And from that, I have a following question.
Yes, please.
That I feel like would be important for people. How do you know the difference between giving up on something too early? Let's say you're building a business and you feel like you're failing, right? Or you're doing social media, you feel like, oh, you're not getting views and stuff and you want to give up. How do you know the difference between giving up right now too early when you better maybe stick to it longer? Because I feel like giving up, it's one of the reasons why many people don't become fulfilled, don't succeed. It's like you just gave up.
Yeah.
But also, how do you know the difference between this versus realizing the thing that you're doing is no longer aligned with who you are and where you're going? Because we also evolve. And sometimes things get outdated and you're like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm aligned with it anymore. So now I can easily give up because it's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's a question that a lot of us, I feel like, battling all the time. And it's like, when do I give up? When do I keep going? And I would really, really love to hear your take on that, because I feel like with your experience for the last 10 years, as you said, just like going through this journey, you had moments when you had to give up some things, which is like maybe friends, maybe family time or something. But there were things you had to stick to. And I'm really, really curious. What would you say to people who are in this kind of wandering place?
It's a beautiful question. And it's definitely one I've asked myself a lot through the time. Even before I was doing what I'm doing online present now, I was still very ambitious. I was still pursuing a lot of great things, and I had a great career that I chose to give up. And it was very difficult. And that's what is in the point of sacrifice and quitting and knowing when to quit, right? The question that's in the center of it all is it worth it? And it doesn't have to be deeper than that. If what you're pursuing will be worth the hardship, then you better keep going. Like, failing, good. That means you're right on the right track. You need to be failing. If you're not failing, Denzel Washington said this best, and I think he even quoted, it's not his quote, but he said it best. And that is, if you're not failing, you aren't even trying. You need to be failing, right? If you're not failing, you're not thinking big enough. It's as simple as that. Failing is the path to success. It's the only way you get successful. But if you're continuously failing and everything is falling apart, and, well, it doesn't even matter if everything is falling apart. Like, nothing could be falling apart. But if it's not worth it for the outcome, then quit. Like, don't do that. For me, that meant what I was chasing, what I was pursuing, was not worth what I had to give up. I wouldn't be, so for context, I was a musician, right? And I was doing pretty well for where I was. I had put in so much of my life, right? And then you talk about sunken cost bias, which is also a thing, right? So probably for 5 years, this was my main pursuit of sacrifice as well, right? So I sacrificed everything for this. But I realized after a long time that getting to this dream outcome I had would actually probably not be worth it for what I was willing to sacrifice. Sure, I would have all the money and I would be doing what I love, right? But probably also, be traveling all day in a bus with someone I don't even know, and being sweaty and being away from my family and being, a puppet for, if you're a musician, you have a label that's controlling you, or you do it yourself and then you have sleepless nights because you don't make money, right? There's so many sacrifices. And that's the question. That's the core question of, when do you know when to quit? When do you know when to keep going? Is it worth it? Is the outcome actually worth it? And if you have that thing that you want to pursue and that's your life mission, you should not stop no matter how hard it gets. And that's a gift and a curse, because there will be a lot of ups and downs and moments where you think about quitting, but where you shouldn't if it's worth it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love how you said it. Also, I feel like I already see the comments and I already see the potential answer of the audience. And it's like, sometimes you just keep going and you know that there's the thing that you really want, but you're just doubting because of, right, like you're constantly failing. You're doubting that you will ever even get there. And there is like the moment, how do you start to trust yourself and rebuild the trust in your vision, your own voice and yourself in the moments when you look outwards, everything seems like falling apart and not working. And sometimes it's like, yeah, if it's worth it, keep going. But it's like, you know that you want this thing. But if you keep not seeing results, you're like, okay, maybe it will never happen. And you start to doubt. And how do you deal with this? How do you allow yourself to not even like, how do you allow yourself to keep going when everything seems to be against you? Because it's also about inner allowance, because there's this plan B in some type of way that you have in the back of your mind, and you're like, maybe I should just go there. And it's like, how do you allow yourself to stay on the path that is irrational sometimes when you feel like, wow, everything outwards is against me, or it doesn't work, or it feels like maybe I will never get there. Like, it's just, I feel like it's about trusting your vision and your voice, but how do you rebuild it in those tough moments?
Yeah, beautiful question. Again, a question you can ask yourself that kind of answers that. What's the alternative? What would happen if you quit? Like, if you really said to yourself, okay, I'll never get there. What's reality then like, right? You might not get there, and I think that's the harsh reality that a lot of people have to face, right? There are so many, everyone knows the idea of the starving artist, right? Like this musician that's starving, but their craft is beautiful and they're spreading joy and, emotion to people, and they look up to for their craftsmanship, but they're starving. They cannot put food on the table, right? Like that then becomes, is it worth it? For that artist, it's probably worth it, right? But how do you trust the journey? How do you trust that you will get there? What's the alternative? If this is the very thing you want to go, and do. Why not do it? Like, it's a cliche, but you have one life. Like, you have one shot, and you might not get there. Like, you might not get there, and that's a reality. But not pursuing it will guarantee you don't get there, right? So why not try? At least that's my perspective. Why not try? You only have this one life, so why not try to get there? And I also think that, just to add on this, right? How do you make sure that you don't just spend a life pursuing something and you never got there? Well, you forget the outcome. You focus on the journey. You focus on creating a life where it's not the outcome that's the purpose and the meaning of it, but it's the journey, right? You'll never meet a football player who, there of course there'll be a goal of like, I want to become a professional football player, but then they reach that and they're like, oh, I want to be the best in my club, or I want to be the best in the league, and I want to be the top scorer, right? There's always a goal, but it's not like as if it's not about being a football player. That's the perfect part about it. So I think if you figure something out that you just love doing as the starving artist, it's not about how many records you sell. It's about getting to work on your craft every single day, and that's what success feels like. If you can manage to do that, you erase the question of how do I keep going when I'm in doubt and all that, because this is the path for you, right? If you don't manage to find that thing, a lot of people don't, I think it is the other question of what's the alternative? Are you willing to settle? Are you willing to say, okay, I'm 27 years old and I didn't get where I wanted to go, so let's just go for plan B and be okay with that? Then do it. If you're okay with it, do it. But if you know there's more to life, why not go for it? You only have this one time, one chance. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would say to someone thinking that.
And I also feel like it's better to try and fail than to live a life full of regret.
Yeah.
Because you will always keep thinking, but what if? What if I would
Exactly.
stick to the thing?
Exactly.
And it is so much worse
Yeah.
than like trying and failing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the worst thing that can happen is you will have a pretty normal, average, good, stable life.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the worst thing. But I do feel like a lot of us create this awful scenario in our head where it's like, if I fail, it's a disaster. But in reality, nothing will happen. Okay, you will go to the life that is comfortable, that is good. I mean, at least in the West. Let's say if you live in the West. We don't talk about the extremes where maybe people from Middle East or other places, they're going through like war and all of that. And for them, it's a little bit different question. But if you live in the West, like the worst thing that can happen, you have a good job, you have a good apartment, you have good people around you, like nothing crazy would happen. But if you don't try, you will never know. You will never know what could happen. So I feel like it's just a matter of, as you said, the journey and the progress. What I would love to ask is, a lot of us, we listen to this type of podcast and we get inspired and we're like, okay, I will go and pursue that thing. But after a while, we start to do something new, fresh, and we go back. Even after making the progress, even after like seeing the results, we go back to the old ways of thinking, to the old patterns, to the old doubt, to the old self, I would say, that is like, no, come back. No, we will keep the comfort zone. And what is usually missing on this journey of pursuing the thing that you want that is making us go back to the old patterns? What is the thing that we don't consider maybe before going into something? Or what is the step that we don't take before actually going all in on the thing? Maybe it's the mindset. Maybe it's like not thinking about where you are right now, as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. Like you don't consider your current circumstances, or maybe we don't set the right expectation. Like what is it that makes us, even after the progress, go back to the old patterns? Because that's one of the biggest problems, I think, for any person who is trying to change their life. It's like you start, you go back, you start, you go back, and it's the loop.
Yeah, it's the cycle of, progression and then falling back off. And yeah. I think it was key when you said try to change your life. Because I think that loop of progression and then falling back and, falling off track, that is part of progression. That is part of growth, right? That's That is what success looks like. It's failure, failure. Then you reiterate, you fall back, you go back to the old, and you try again. And then you get it right and you become better and better. So I actually think if you are failing and if you are falling back into the old routines and all that, I think you're doing pretty well. It means you're trying at least, right? It's more than a lot of other people are doing either way. So that's great. So I don't think it becomes a question of how do you avoid failing or going back. But if you really want to change your life, if you really want to change your identity and not go back to those things, you do have to rewire your thinking, right? You do have to rewire how you see different things. You have to rewire, that's why a lot of these, that's why a diet, for example, I'm pretty sure it's been scientifically proven that diets never really work, because the diet in itself works, but it's the time people go on a diet for 30 days and then they go back. But there's no internal rewiring in that. And it's just a new habit, right? If you want to change yourself, you have to change the way you see things. You have to change the way you look at food. If you want to go on a diet and you want to be more healthy, it's not about on a window cutting out, all pizza or whatever. You have to make a conscious decision of, I'm not going to be the type of person that does this anymore. When would any smoker ever stop smoking if they said, I'm going to quit smoking for 30 days and then I'll go back again, right? They're still smoking. They're still a smoker. So it's like you have to rewire the way you think about things in order to not slip back into that loop. However, I also want to say that I think it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing journey. Life is not made of these once in a lifetime scenarios. Most of the case, life is made of very, very small incremental improvements where you change your perspective over time. Instead of, you're probably not working out right now at all and you want to become this very healthy person. Maybe for some people, it takes a life shifting event to happen. You figure out you have a heart disease, right? And you need to get working out. Otherwise, things will not go as good as you wanted it to, right? So you get that nudge. But for a lot of people, it's simply a change in habits and a change of, okay, I'll start going to the gym. And then after 1 year, you're going 3 times consistently every week. After 2 years, you're going 5 times consistently every week. And at some point, it's just the way of nature. You just do it every single day. I could not imagine a day not being physically active. I would feel terrible. When I do, I feel terrible. I hate it. It's just a part of who I am. But it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a long period of time of reshaping my thinking around what it means to be healthy. Healthy is not a diet. Healthy is a lifestyle, right? And I think for anyone going through that progress loop of doing something, starting something new, taking action, feeling inspired, I love it. Don't hold yourself back. Keep doing that. And if it takes 50 tries to do it, keep trying. Just keep trying. But I think a way you can get around that is to be very, very clear on why you're trying, what it is you're trying, before you go out and only act on inspiration. But I would say action with inspiration and going back to square zero and trying again and keep falling off of the horse and back off is way better than not doing anything. So don't beat yourself up about trying. If you're trying, that's amazing. Keep trying, keep going, and you will get there. But the more clarity you have, the easier it becomes to follow that path. And the more clarity you have of where you're going, why you're going, what's your intention behind the goal as well, the easier it becomes to align with that. It's not about, living up to it. It's about aligning with it instead.
I really loved what you said at the end. It's not living up to it, but being in alignment. I feel like it's the same thing that we discussed earlier. It's the problem of being afraid to try and being afraid of not getting it perfect. I want to ask something similar, but from a little bit different perspective. If someone is listening to all of us right now, right? And they're like, I have the exact knowledge. Okay, I understand what I should be doing. But they're stuck in this consumption and getting ready and preparing, which is the same perfectionism and thinking you have to get it right and you don't really, you can't just fail. It's the same preparation loop basically, but they're stuck in the consumption, but not transformation loop. What is the harsh truth maybe that they really need to hear right now? Or what is the thing that you really have for them that that would wake them up and make them understand that, okay, maybe we should go and take the action. Maybe there is something that you're missing or have like as the stereotypical wrong idea that you have to change if you actually want to move forward.
Love the question. It's very simple. You already have everything you need to make progress. You have everything you need. We are caught in a cycle of wanting more and more and more and more and learning more and more and more and becoming better and better and better. And yeah, that's perfect. But the idea is that you do that whilst you are moving. You'll never get to that top point if you keep staying at the same point. It again, progress over perfection. You will never get to perfection if you don't make progress. It's one of the oldest quotes I know, and I love it, is Lao Tzu saying, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And the only way to walk 1,000 miles is to take one step after the other. So for anyone, take one step. And it's so simple, but it is really true. I spent probably 5 years of my life, and I spent more than 5 years, but I spent 5 years of my conscious life actively trying to figure out where I wanted to go in life. And this is why I'm preaching this now. Anyone who knows me personally knows that I've always been a thinker and a reflector and, overthinker and analyzing everything. That's not how you figure out where you want to go. Well, that's not true. It is how you figure out where you want to go, but it's not how you get there. And you have to figure out where you want to go, but you'll never get there if you don't start taking the steps. You need clarity, but you don't need clarity to start. You need clarity to get there. But a lot of that clarity comes along the path. As you walk the path will show itself. So it's just about start walking and taking steps. And I know people watching, listening to this, they already have an idea of what a step could be. And you don't need to see the full, this is also an amazing quote I love. You don't need to see the full staircase to take the first couple of steps. Just take the first couple of the steps. Then you'll see the rest of the staircase afterwards, right? And it's a cliche, but it's really true. You just have to start walking.
Yeah. It's basically going to the same thing we started with. It's like to gain clarity, you have to keep going and just start and move. Movement is life, as my father used to tell me my whole childhood, my whole life. He's like, movement is life. If you don't move, you don't live. And it's like, that's why maybe feeling stuck when you don't do something, when you have those ideas, but you keep them inside. That's why maybe it feels like, so heavy. Because it's like you keep it all in one place and it's like killing you in some type of way slowly because you're like overthinking and it gets bigger and worse and the fears get more. And it's like you start to paint the picture that is not even real. I heard someone saying that fear and faith, it's the same thing, but faith is having the belief in something that you can't see that in a positive way, but like fear is having the same type of belief and trust into something you can't see but in a negative way. And it's just a matter of choice. And the more you sit with those ideas, the more you overthink, the more you know what to do but you don't do it, the worse it will get. The worse you will start to create the scenarios that are not even real, that will stop you even more, and it will just drag you down. That's just life. That's just the journey, as you said, and you have to start with one step. But I will ask last two questions because I really feel like it's such a long podcast, but I really love talking to you.
I love it.
Okay, what is one thing that you wish everyone knew about the real growth and real path of transforming your life and becoming better that could save them and that saved you so many years of struggle, so many years of getting stuck, trying again, failing? What is this one thing that you wish everybody knew before they go on that adventure and that would save them so many years of just struggle and trying to figure it all out?
It's an amazing question. I think it's a very intricate answer I'll give because I think this is of course I love you asked that question because it's no offense to the question, but I think the question is flawed in its reality of saying, what is the thing that can save you struggle? Because if you want growth, you need struggle. That's the only way you'll grow. But what will save you years or your life of that type of struggle you're probably talking about, of being unfulfilled, I assume, right? Is accepting struggle and taking on challengers. I think a lot of our life is created, or I think all of our life is created from within. It's from our thoughts, our mindset, everything. And the only way to change that is really to challenge ourselves, is to put ourselves out of the comfort zone. And as we just spoke about, take the steps. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand from the question you mean these many, many years of struggle is that quiet voice of saying like, oh, I could do this, or, I'm not good enough, or, there's all these things that I want to do, but I don't know how, and all that, right? The normal sense of I'm not where I want to be, like unease, unhappiness, right? And I think that is accepting that if you want to grow, if you want to get to where you want to go, there will be ups and downs along the path, and the path will not be easy. It will not. But as I said earlier in the podcast as well, what's the alternative, right? You can either choose hard and you'll become way better at overcoming hard, and you'll have way more tools and you have way more clarity to overcome these hard obstacles. Or you can avoid hard the rest of your life and live in a constant fear of hard. So I think choosing hard will always make life easier, not effortless, but easier. And I think if anyone wants growth, it's not necessarily the same as happiness, but you will have to go out of your comfort zone. You will have to do things you really don't want to do. That's growth, right? And I would actually say I think growth is best found, this is my opinion, of course, but I think growth is best found in cycles. I don't think you can continue growing, because if you think about it, growth, the most amount of growth always happens after something traumatic or something really, really big has happened, right? And if you would live your life constantly like that, you would not live very much. You would just be in this constant fear and, this constant situation of unease. But if you want to live a happy life, you need to overcome some of that. So I think they play really, really well together, right? I love this idea that happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to overcome them. So we need to overcome obstacles in order to grow, in order to be happy. And at some point, we take on another challenge. We grow more, right? And I think if you can get to the point where you're happy through the growth, through the challenges, then you've won at life, because that's what life really is about, right? But I think for anyone avoiding struggle, good luck, because life is hard. Life is hard, right? But I love your question, like avoiding the struggle of not living the life you want to. And that is choosing growth, choosing struggle, choosing hardship, choosing what's hardest over what's nice and comfortable.
That's beautiful. And I would even add, nothing in this life is easy. And living a life full of success, full of happiness, full of healthy relationships, full of growth is hard. But as well as living a life that is
It's all hard. It's all hard.
Going to the gym is hard, but not going to the gym is hard too, because it has consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just choose your hard.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, nothing in this life is easy, but even if everything was easy, you wouldn't even appreciate it.
No, yeah.
You appreciate things only when you overcome something, you grew, you change, you learn.
Yeah.
And that's the moment when you're like, wow, I appreciate it because I know how hard I worked for it. If everything was easy and given to you, you wouldn't even be grateful for it. Because you can be grateful and happy without having moments when you didn't have something, having moments of luck and struggle to compare with. And I think like even growing and learning in itself, it's like, I guess Alex Hormozy said it or someone, it's like the same conditions, different behavior, the same context, different behavior. It's like if you have the same situation and you act the same, you didn't learn. It's like you just have to change the behavior. And even going in like those loops in some type of way, it's same condition, but you don't change your behavior. Once you just start to change behavior at least a little bit, you're already going out of it. You're already learning. And yeah, that's just beautiful, everything you said. It's like how to stop feeling stuck and live in struggle is like embrace struggle. Like go.
Yeah, in that way. But it's as you said, and thanks for adding that. Like choose your heart. Life is hard. Life will be hard no matter what. So that's you cannot live a life avoiding struggle. You'll live a life of struggle that way. You'll live a life of being fearful of struggle.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get used to the hard, you're not scared of hard. You're not scared of what comes your way because you know you can overcome it, right? And it probably won't lead you to a happy life, but it will lead you to a much more peaceful life.
Definitely. And I even think like it's about approaching life in a way where I feel like sometimes we take life too seriously and we're like, it's so hard, it's so challenging. But in reality, if you approach it with the mindset of like video game, as I
Exactly.
teach
Yeah.
myself sometimes, it's like it's not hard. It's like, you know, it's not a problem what I face. It's just one more opportunity to learn the new approach for things, or one more opportunity to try myself and try something new and have a new perspective on things. It's not like hard situations. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't learn something. I didn't consider something before. I will consider it now. I will learn and I will apply it again. It's like everything in life, you can approach it with a better mindset and it will make the game easier in a first place.
Yeah.
Because you can look at it as, you know, some people do, even in like self-development world. It's more like, I would say, Andrew Tate type of approach. Life is hard. Everyone is against you, la la la. So it's like, you know, they're kind of creating the problems out of an air to entertain themselves and to kind of overcome something and make it like the thing. But in reality, like, what is a problem? You can just decide that there are no problems, there are only opportunities, you know? It's just the names that we put on things. But you can just put the different name and it will create a different approach.
I think it comes from the idea, just to sorry to cut you off quickly, but I think it comes from this perception that life is supposed to be easy and fun all the times. So if it's not easy, then it's hard, and that's a problem, that's an issue. But once you realize that life is not about being, life is not about happiness. Life is about life. Life is about experiences. It's about overcoming struggle. It's about growing. It's about, expanding your horizon. That's what life is about. Then you realize that the ups and the downs are all momentarily, and they're not issues. They're just part of the journey. If you would be walking on a mountain, you wouldn't only want to see all the beautiful flowers and the perfectly paved path, right? Yes, that sounds amazing if you think about it, but if you take it further than the first 2 hours, you'd probably be bored after looking at the same beautiful flowers at all times, right? Again, it goes back to a point I made earlier, the yin and yang. For order, there has to be chaos. There has to be contrast. Life has to have contrast. Sure, it's why we appreciate it, as you said, but it's what makes us appreciate it even more. Even though I think we can appreciate things we haven't earned, so to say. Like, I didn't earn today, but I appreciate today, right? But it's a different outlook on it. But I agree, problems are not problems; they're just steps on the path.
Yeah, definitely. I really love the whole message of the last couple of questions. It's like amazing. And that's one of the things that I want to do with the podcast. I want to ask people, because the podcast is called Her Way Podcast, which is basically paving your own path. I want to ask this one question to every guest at the end of the episode. And it is, what does success mean to you now? And how do you see the idea of success for yourself? What is success? Like, when can you say, like, I made it, or there's no point like that?
There definitely is no point in saying I made it. I think there is a point, I see life as milestones. I see life as, there are goals along the way that you want to achieve. I love this analogy of like you're going on this mountain and you're climbing it and you have this path and there's so many paths and ups and downs and obstacles and slippery rocks and everything. And along the way comes these stop signs of like photo stops or something, right? Where you take a picture and you just stop on the bus ride for 5 minutes and then you continue on. Those are the milestones. Those are the goals you realize that you actualize, that you make come to fruition. And of course, I think those are important. You need to have ambition. But I think a successful life is enjoying the journey. It's enjoying the climb. It's enjoying the process of time and spending your time where you like spending your time. So for me, what is success? I think the very definition of success to me is getting what you wanted, right? It's meeting your expectation. And I think you have to let go of your expectations often to realize what life really is about. So I think for me, being successful is living in alignment with who I want to be. It's not about, this ideal. Well, sure, there's an ideal, but it's not about the future. It's an ideal of who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up as? I would be lying if I said there is no ideal, right? I have an idea of who I want to be, but it's spending every day consciously closing that gap. And I think that I made it moment will probably happen and has happened loads of times already. But I think those are milestones because your bar will always move if you continue the journey of life. If you continue the pursuit of living, then you'll always find more experiences that you will enjoy living and enjoy captivating and enjoy, indulging in. So I think life is never ending in that sense. And what was the second part of the question again? Sorry. What was success and...
Yeah, wait. It was just basically what it means for you. Yeah. I think that was a question.
Okay.
No, or maybe I already forgot it myself.
Yeah.
The whole point of the question was, just like, what does it mean to you? Like, and you answered it perfectly. I love it.
Yeah, I think it depends on your definition of success, right? I remember when I was 15 and I figured out what I wanted to do in life, right? I was like, this is what I want in life. It was like family, success, right? So success became this synonym or this acronym or whatever the word is. I've completely forgotten now, but it became this connection with being successful. Like, what does that mean? Nowadays, it means being rich, being famous, being, well known, being a master in some kind of skill. And I think those are all traits, those are all parts of being successful. But essentially successful means reaching your expectation. If your goal in life is to live on a farm with your family and have 3 ducks and 2 sheep and 44 cows, then you are by definition successful if you achieve that, right? So I think it's really about living in alignment, continuing to follow the path and where that path takes me, because I don't know what my life looks like in 10 or 20 years. I have no idea. Well, I have an idea, but I'm not married to the expectation, right? And I think success is being open to seeing what life happens to throw your way and still consciously designing it the way you want it to be.
That's really beautiful. I really love the answer. That's the reason why I want to ask this question to every guest, because I'm curious on different perspectives and definitions of success to everybody. Because as you said, there is like one idea of success right now that is promoted. It's you're young, you're rich, you are famous, you drive, I don't know, Lamborghini or Porsche, and you are this list of like criterias. But in reality, not everyone is, as you said, meant to have this life. And it's so weird to put in like people in the box where if you are not that, you're not successful. It's like, it's so unrealistic because everyone has a different calling. As you said, especially, I'll say it from a female perspective more, but I just know that unfortunately or fortunately, in my probably worldview is pretty much unfortunately, that a lot of women, for example, don't see having a family and being a good mother as successful.
Yeah.
A lot of women, I wouldn't even say a lot, 99.99999% of women I meet, my age, older, doesn't matter. When you ask them, what is your definition of success? It's always, I have a Louis Vuitton bag, I'm in Miami, I have a rich husband, I do all of that, I travel the world. And even though it might be true to someone, right? Of course, we all have our own alignment. But if it's true to you and it's actually what you want, great. But it's not for everyone. And I feel like we need to take a break from social media more and just ask ourselves, what is our definition of success?
Yeah.
Because as I said, I just never met women who would be like, oh, my definition of success is this. I want to be an artist, let's say, and painter, and I want to have this. It's like, or I want to have a good family and be a mother and just raise amazing kids. It's like, it's such a standard answer that I always receive that I'm like, I started to feel like I have to ask people this question more. Because it feels like no one is even asking it.
No, thinking about it, yeah.
Exactly. It's like everyone gives the exact same answer. And I'm like, wow, that says a lot. So I felt like I just want to ask people more. And I really loved how you said that it's alignment, and it's so beautiful, and it's the answer that will inspire a lot of people who are watching this to reflect on what is their definition of success. And it's just beautiful.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I hope that that's the case, because as you said, not a lot of people are asking that question. And I think if more people knew what they wanted to get out of life, like really wanted, what would make them not happy, but what they value, what's important to them, I think we would live a very different life, a very different world, a better world, I think.
Yeah, obviously. Because we wouldn't be pursuing something that is not even meant for us.
Yeah.
And that is not like even our desire.
Yeah.
Because I feel like dissatisfaction in life, it's going back to the whole topic of the episode basically, but dissatisfaction in life comes from misalignment, and you will never be aligned if you don't know the point B in the first place. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming. It
Yeah,
was
thank you for having
amazing. It was super long episode, but I appreciate everything we
Thank you
talked
for
about.
every minute. I appreciate it loads, to getting to share, and your beautiful questions. I appreciate it loads.